This lovesick stork travels thousands of miles every year just to be with his injured soulmate. After the recent breakup of Brangelina, here's a rock-solid couple that'll restore your faith in romance. Yes, these two storks are literal lovebirds, and they're a perfect example of how absence really does make the heart grow fonder. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing for Croatia's most famous animal couple. For instance, 22 years ago, female stork Milena had a fateful encounter with an Italian hunter who would change her life forever. Fortunately, Milena was lucky enough to keep her life, but the encounter cost her one of her wings. In fact, the hunter's shot brought her down to the ground and broke her wing. And even after she recovered, the damage was too severe to support her flight, and she never flew again. Meanwhile, male stork Klepetan was enjoying the high life in the skies. After all, storks are migratory birds. In fact, every year as the colder weather begins, they fly south for the winter to warmer climates until spring is sprung once more. Each autumn, the birds take off and travel thousands of miles to chase the warm weather. Interestingly, their arrival back from their 9-month trip may be one of the reasons why they're associated with bringing people babies. Plus, this particular folktale was popularized by one of Hans Christian Andersen's more sinister stories. So what became of flightless Milena? Well, it wasn't all doom and gloom for her. Indeed, she found a lovely home in a little village called Brodsky Varos and a new human friend in the form of Stepchen Vokich. Vokich, incidentally, is a big-hearted former school janitor. And Vokich took Milena in and looked after her, giving her a place to live on his red rooftop. In fact, it was here where a nest was set up for her to roost. Fortunately, too, Milena didn't appear to have any difficulty meeting other storks. That's because 15 years ago, Milena met Klepetan, and it must have been love at first sight. After all, the storks have been together ever since. And despite Milena's inability to join her soulmate in his migration, she and Klepetan have a love that proves long-distance relationships can work. There's a bittersweet element to the couple's story, though. After all, when the time comes for Klepetan to migrate again, Milena can only bid her love farewell and wait for his safe return. But love can move mountains, and it brings her sweetheart back to her every time. It's a story of longing, waiting, and overcoming one of the hardest obstacles in any relationship: distance, Total Croatian News reported in an article dedicated to the devoted lovers. It's no trifling distance either. Klepetan must travel over 8,000 miles to return to Milena. When he gets back, though, Klepetan knows a huge welcome will be waiting for him. And that's not just from Milena either. In fact, Vokich always has a nice gift for the tired traveler when Klepetan completes his return trip. Each year, Vokich prepares a bucket of fish to greet Klepetan upon his return, so he can recover from the long journey and take his place in the nest next to Milena. Total Croatian News explained, in 2016, however, Klepetan caught his human friend by surprise. In fact, the far-flying stork finished his migration trip prematurely and came back a week ahead of schedule. He was so early that Vokich hadn't even laid out his usual welcome feast for the returning traveler. Indeed, this behavior was so unusual that some neighbors questioned whether it really was Klepetan. But Vokich had no doubts. After all, the loyal Klepetan knew exactly where to go for food. He went straight to the bucket of fish, which was empty because I wasn't expecting him yet, and only he knows where to find it, Vokich reported. Then, of course, he went to the nest just like every other year. That's Klepetan, all right, he added. Curiously, storks coming from Croatia and other parts of Europe used to spend their winter months on the African savanna or in Nigeria. However, recently, migrating routes are changing. According to the British Trust of Ornithology, which has been monitoring storks with global tracking systems, wintering storks get most of their food from landfill sites. However, new regulations have closed a number of landfills, and an increasing number of migrating storks have started wintering in southern Europe. Of course, it's possible that the change in regulations have altered Klepetan's wintering routes. Luckily, this should allow him to stay closer to his beloved Milena and be back to her sooner. If that's the case, the journey would certainly be safer for him, and it's not just Milena and Vokich that would be happy. In the spring, for instance, Klepetan is usually met with a flock of paparazzi ready to document his yearly return to Milena. And for the past 15 years, they haven't been disappointed. Yes, the love the storks share has weathered the yearly migration despite the distance. The Croatian Tourist Board also recognized the heartwarming story of love and dedicated an animated clip to the now famous couple, so we invite you to watch it and say hello to someone you love. Total Croatian News reported. It's everything that Romeo and Juliet should have been. Klepetan and Milena embody the love everybody wishes to find with their soulmate, despite the obstacles. Even more encouragingly, they've had a family of over 40 storklets together. Please don't forget to share this video with your friends below.